Last time I said that the most insidious pendulum arrives as your own voice. This is that video. It shows up right when you sit down to practice. It may say, that passage still isn't clean, you've been working on this for 3 months, something is wrong with you, other people don't struggle with this like that. Here is what I want to suggest to you. That voice is not yours. And I don't mean that metaphorically. That voice was factory installed by your environment growing up. And it continues updating its software most of the time without you realizing it. This voice doesn't even need to use any words to have power over you. I remember getting ready to go on stage in 2011 in the Netherlands. And there was a piano competition, and the round started with Liszt's Ninth Rhapsody. A piece I had prepared carefully, and it starts with this one passage that always demanded a bit extra respect, but which I paid, and so it had never given me any real trouble until 15 minutes before going on the stage, warming up in the green room, I couldn't get my hands to go through it. That glitch hooked me for the rest of my warm-up. I started fixing it quietly, stressing up. My last seconds in that green room were spent on that passage, fixing the issue, not the music, all the way until I walked on the stage. That night, with a bit extra caution, it worked, but it drained my confidence for the later rounds. I have more of these stories that ended up way more dramatically than I'd like to have. Moments before a performance, stress about forgetting the opening bars. I would go back to the first page of the sheet again and again. That only fed that anxiety and drained me before I even walked on the stage. For most of my practicing life, I handled that problem in the same way, changing nothing. Just keep putting in more hours, more grind. I tried positive affirmations, they never worked, because they didn't touch the root. What did work was simpler. I played better when nothing was framed as important to my career, advancement of my career or identity. Now, over time, what carried me through in a more consistent manner, especially at performances or teaching classes, was leaning into the character of the music, the emotion between the lines, not the execution. So it wasn't about fixing the voice, but finding something more important to give my attention to. I still felt nervous, but that self-destructive inner critic went way quieter. Only now, spending these months inside the world of metaphorical thinking and reframing, have I started asking a different question. What if this voice was never mine to begin with? Most of us musicians treat that inner critic as a feature of the self. Either it is a useful feature, it keeps the standards high, or it's a flaw. I need to be more confident. But both positions share the same singular premise, that the voice belongs to you, that it is you. What if the inner critic, though, isn't part of your psychology, but a structure that's feeding on your psychology? What if it doesn't care about your growth at all, only about your attention and your anxiety? If you saw the last video, you know how a pendulum captures attention. There is a hook, you feed it, and it drains you. The inner critic runs this exact same pattern. For potential new viewers, the shorthand, a pendulum is any structure that sustains itself on your emotional energy. Whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter. It hooks you with something, it feeds on your attention or emotions or fears, and drains more than it gives. Applied to inner critic, the hook, a moment of genuine failure or imperfection, that passage I was telling you about that falls apart, the performance that doesn't go as planned, then you feed it. You argue back, or you try to silence it, or you try to prove it wrong by practicing more or ignoring the voice harder. Anything you do through that route feeds the structure, not your skill. And then it drains you. Over time, that inner critic doesn't make you better, it makes you tighter. Performances get more anxious. Practice sessions start with a dread. The thing that was supposed to raise your standards is actively lowering your ceiling. The mechanism is identical to any other pendulum. It's just wearing your voice. Now, there can be many sources where that voice came from. A teacher's comment that lodged itself in your psyche, a competitive environment that rewarded self-criticism, a culture that conflated high standards with self-punishment and very little time to execute. For me, it was years of recital anxiety and never addressed fully, therefore, which got deeply internalized, combined, and that's my sin, with inconsistent quality of focus in the practice room, which looked like multitasking, distractions, which then led to a low level of unsureness of whether what I had practiced was already ready for the stage. I have always put in the hours. That wasn't the issue, but I was counting the hours. I was considering those hours as the marker of preparation without examining the quality of the attention. So, trace where yours came from without self-judgment. Trace your roots, trace your sources. Once you see those clearly, you will realize it wasn't built by you deliberately. And that's actually good news, because structures that weren't yours to begin with can be more easily disengaged from. Now, disengagement is not positive thinking. It's not silencing the voice through willpower either. And it is certainly not lowering your standards. The two practical things to try. Number one is two stages rather. Be the observer. When the voice starts the chatter, don't argue back, don't agree either, just label it. Oh, there is a critic. Hi, welcome back. And then redirect the critic's attack to you somewhere else. Instead of engaging with whether the voice is right or wrong, diffuse the whole sequence by moving your attention into the next small unit of work. Not the performance, not the long-term goal and how quickly you achieve that, just the next 2 bars, the next minute. In the conducting world, the inner critic often attaches to something visible, a new technique you are adopting, a habit you're trying to break. The most common version applies in equal proportions to conducting, piano, or anything else music performance related, is when we're focusing so hard on not making a mistake that we stop actually listening to the orchestra or to the music. That's the pendulum running. The redirect is very simple. It is the same regardless of how you perform music. Move your attention back into the sound. So the inner critic sounds like you. It uses your vocabulary, your memories, your specific insecurities. That's what makes it convincing. But the test isn't whether it sounds like you. The test, what matters is whether it's serving you, whether it's making you better or just making you smaller. That voice isn't your consciousness. It's more like a habit, and habits can be changed. But there is a second inner pendulum that operates differently, and maybe in some ways is harder to catch, because it doesn't sound like self-criticism at all. It sounds like motivation. That's the comparison pendulum, and that's the next video. Be playful, be curious.